Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Mom on the Verge podcast, where I aim to help you improve your sense of joy, purpose, and meaning in this life. We will talk about a lot of different ways we can do this, but ultimately, we'll be working toward finding our way back home to ourselves and remembering that even in the most challenging times, peace is only a breath away. I am your host, Katie Farinas, a mom, nurse, and yogi on a mission to improve mental health and build community in our world. All right, I have a super fun guest for you today. Her name is Kendra Williams. And if you listen to my interview with Brooke Jean, she is the Unperfected Pod. That is her podcast that I mentioned on the episode. And she talks about living life unperfected and how much better life can be when we live it unperfected. So if you listen to that episode, I actually heard Kendra being interviewed on the Unperfected Pod. And I thought, oh my goodness, this person is such a great guest for this show. And I think that my audience would get so much value out of listening to her. So and I was right because this interview is fantastic. I think you're really going to love it. And she focuses on the process of matrescence. And I'll be honest, I've recently heard that term in the vernacular, I would say within the past year or so, but I still was not really familiar with what that term meant. And in fact, before I interviewed her, I had to look up the term so that I knew exactly what it meant. Apparently, the term came onto the scene approximately, Kendra says in our interview, and I think it's 50 years ago. But listen in the episode, she'll tell you for sure. And it's the process of becoming a mother. And it's not just like, it's not just pregnancy. It's not just getting pregnant and having the baby. It is the transition into motherhood and all the not just physical changes that happen, but societal changes, how our roles change, how the expectations of ourselves and from others change. It's the whole package, really. And as soon as I read the definition and I listened to Kendra speak about what it was, I I instinctually knew what she was talking about because I remember when I became a mom, the ideas in my head of what I thought it was to be a mom versus what I actually experienced. And she really breaks it down between mothering, the act of mothering, and that's taking care of our kids and all the things we do in the role of mother. Um, in the role of mother. But then there is what happens to you inside, what happens to your mind, body, spirit, and all of the stuff that comes up internally for a woman when she enters into this new role of motherhood. And I had a lot of stuff come up actually. And I looked around at other women who were mothering around me and thought, that there was something wrong with me, that they seemed to seamlessly transition into this new role without all of this internal stuff surfacing for them. Um, I now know that to not be true, but I thought that for many, many years. And there was a lot of guilt and shame that went with feeling like there was something wrong with me because my experience of motherhood and becoming a mother was so different from what I thought it would be in my head and what I thought I was witnessing of other women who are similar in age as me and becoming moms. So Kendra really breaks that silence. She breaks the door wide open to allow women to really share their experience of what it means to become a mom and how it changes us so profoundly on the inside. And she talks about how it's an ever evolving process, right? It doesn't just happen when you give birth to a baby and that initial process of entering the role of motherhood, that it's an ongoing process that really lasts the rest of our lives. And I, for one, can tell you that that is true in my case. I have seen it over and over how, as my children grow and change, I grow and change right along with them. And it's a beautiful process. It's a really hard process, but it's beautiful. And motherhood can catapult you into the life that you were really meant to live and grow your soul in the way that it needs to be grown, and allow you to expand in ways that you didn't even know was possible when you first entered this role in your life. So Kendra helps women do that. She helps them do the inner work so that they can grow and unfold and live a really meaningful, beautiful life where self reflection is integrated and essential as they move through these different phases of mothering and of parenthood. So she's wonderful. She's really a straight shooter. She's down to earth. She tells it like it is. And I think you're really going to enjoy this interview. I will put her contact information in the show notes in case you're interested in working with her. In the meantime, enjoy the show, and I will see you at the end. All right. Hi, Kendra. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this chat.
Me too. I'm very excited. I we were chatting a little offline before we started, recording officially, and took a look at your website and I loved it. But then we started having some conversation around that, and it seems like you have even evolved your message and what you want to share with people beyond what I saw on your website. So I'm really interested to just have this conversation and share it with my audience. So could you just tell us what you do and how you came to do what you do?
Yes, I thank you for having me again. I'm Kendra Williams. I am a transformational life coach. It's the new name I've settled on. I started in this space 4 years ago as a certified conscious parenting coach. So I started under Dr. Shafali because I really realized in my own life that the parenting journey I was on was a lot more about me than it was my kids. And I was like, what's
Mhm.
going on here? Studied under Shafali and started helping women with their parenting struggles. That kind of morphed into, wow, there's so much more going on in motherhood than parenting. Way more.
Mhm.
And I stumbled across the term matrescence, I think in early 2021. And I'm like, what is this weird word I can't spell or really say? And realized this is what I had gone through in motherhood, and this is what I was
Mhm.
actually helping people with. So, matrescence is technically the process of becoming a mother. So, it's modeled after the term adolescence because so many similar things are happening. Usually starts with a biological event. Back then, it was our periods, and now it's
Mhm.
having a baby. And then you go through like 3 to 5 years of acne and your relationships changing and society's like, so what are you going to do when you grow up? And now they're like, so what kind of mom are you going to be? Like there's a full on identity shift that we go through while the world is focused on our cute little babies. And it's kind of a little gaslighty when they're like, how's the baby sleeping? And you're like, who am I now?
Yes. Yes.
So, I am now I'm a transformational life coach who works with women who are mothers because the pressures of motherhood, of modern motherhood,
Mhm.
of social media, of quote unquote doing it all is so high. It
Mhm.
it generally has us cracking and that can sound bad, but I think it cracks us open. And this
Mhm.
is such a beautiful opportunity to do the inner work and start living a life that you really really want to live. Not just the
Yeah.
life you were told to live, not just the life that was offered to you, but like what do I actually want? Who do I'm
Yes.
35. What do I want to be when I grow up? Let's
Yes,
find her.
yes, yes. I was just away with my girlfriends. We did a quick trip to New York City over the weekend for a friend of ours, their birthday. And we were talking about this and we were saying how, motherhood is just not at all what we thought it was going to be. And because the only thing that we knew of motherhood was our observations of our own mother. And so that was just us as children, right? We knew mom was there to maybe cook our meals or pick us up from school or discipline us or help us with our homework or whatever our mothers did for us. We saw that as being a mother. But
Right.
then once we actually became a mother, and that was our expectation, I'm going to tell my kid what's right and wrong and what to do and how to be and make their meals and make sure they're safe and all this stuff. And but then yes, there was this total and complete life altering internal shift that
Yes.
no one is talking about. And then I know for me personally, when I experienced it, I was like, okay, I guess I'm the only one. I guess
Right.
everybody else on the outside looked like they were just doing this mothering thing the way I
Mhm.
thought mothering would be, and totally fine with it. No questions, no concerns, no confusion. They just seemed to be doing what I thought I would be doing. And I was doing all those things on the outside too, but I
Mhm.
was feeling so much on the inside that was not
Yes.
visible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so I like to say motherhood is about you, mothering is about the kids, and the world has conflated those 2 things.
Yeah.
Motherhood has nothing to do with wiping butts and educating. That's mothering,
Yeah.
which I will add is a learned skill. We all like,
Yeah.
oh, it should be instinctual, but like I've never seen a woman learn how to nurse. I may have seen a woman nurse like out in public after she's cried for 40 hours and fixed her mastitis and now she's a pro. I've literally never seen someone nurse before. Like, how the F would I know how to do that? And that's just
Yeah.
like a silly early motherhood example. But I want to share a framework that I love to give out to every woman who is a mother or wants to be one is there's 3 parts of motherhood. Being a mom, like what happens when you put on the mom hat? You're still the human, but we
Hmm.
put on this like beautiful mom hat and we try and live up to the expectations of the hat. What happens to the woman underneath that hat?
Hmm.
That's matrescence. So there's being, and then there's doing, which is here are the parenting styles. This is how you do this. Let's do baby led weaning. How do you want to educate? I'm going to homeschool, blah, 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 blah. Like the
Hmm.
world is obsessed with the doing.
Yeah.
But then there's a third part, relating. This is now that you're a evolved, transformed woman who now does mothering, how do you relate at work? How do you relate to your old
Yes.
friends? How do you relate to your husband?
Yeah.
So I have so many different, I call them storylines because I say motherhood burned every area of my life to the ground. My husband and I actually separated. I moved out. We
Mhm.
got back together. And then I was a Silicon Valley workaholic and I chose to stay home and now I'm a mom coach. And like I have a neurodivergent child and all these diagnoses and that changed me. And people are like, "Well, how did you get your husband back? Or how did you save that?" And I'm like, "Well, you got to start with the being, honey bunny. We got to start at step 1." And
Yes.
the being is the foundational part that we're all missing, and that really is the process of matrescence, and I also wanna share that every woman who is a mother goes through matrescence. It's like a spectrum, like,
Mm.
I don't talk to many women who have the rainbows and butterflies, but imagine, like, the girl who went through puberty, she, like, looked like a woman overnight, no acne, was like, "Oh my gosh," she
Right.
looked 25 instantly. She went through adolescence. It just wasn't like braces and awkwardness and fighting, right?
Right.
Every woman goes through matrescence. Excuse me, every
Yes.
mother. And to know that, to know you're not alone, to know this is a natural, normal, and expected process can bring so much relief and relieve
Yes.
so much pressure from this long-term roller coaster that we're
Yes. No,
on.
truly. I mean, I truly wish I had you when I was first becoming a mother because yeah, I really did feel very, very alone. And I didn't talk about it because there's a lot of shame that comes with it.
Mhm.
Because there's also what can bubble up, I think, in a lot of cases is dissatisfaction, like
Mhm.
dissatisfaction with your partner, dissatisfaction with your body, dissatisfaction with either being a stay-at-home mom or trying to juggle working and the whole everything that comes with motherhood. There's so much questioning, like, did I do the right thing? Should I really even have become a mother? Like,
Mhm.
what? There's so much questioning that goes on, and to feel there's so much shame that come if you feel like you're alone in that and you're
Yeah.
just on the outside looking around at all these other mothers who seem to be glowingly happy in this process
Mhm.
of mothering. um it creates shame and guilt, and that is not
Yeah.
helpful to anyone.
I will add in shame and guilt, but also isolation and
Yes.
rage. These are not symptoms of matrescence, but this is what happens is when matrescence is not acknowledged, that literally I'm the only one. And then when there's usually 2 reactions when you hear the word matrescence. I had the first one, which was rage. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, why the fuck didn't anybody tell me? I got mad at the
Yes.
moms who came before me. I got mad at my own mom. I was like, how did,
Yes.
what happened? And then I get to the second option people usually have is they just start crying. They're like,
Mhm.
I'm not crazy. I
Yeah.
feel seen.
Yeah.
Because when you are trying to do this alone, I mean, imagine getting your period and going through adolescence and the world's like, "Oh, no, I don't bleed.
Yeah.
I don't bleed. You're bleeding?" And you might think you're dying. So we're in matrescence, and we kinda think
Yeah.
we're our identities are dying, our maiden selves are dying, so our mother archetype self can emerge, a part of us is dying. And so we're
Yeah.
grieving, but we're supposed to be happy because the babies are magical. It
Right.
is so enraging, quite
It
honestly.
it really is. It really is. And I don't know where this came from. I don't know if it's, generationally things were much more hush hush. We're definitely more open now in society about talking about many different things. So, do you think that's where it came from? Like women were just not supposed. We were just not supposed to talk about this,
Well,
or
yeah,
yeah,
this is
where do
where
you
I'm
think it
gonna
came
talk about the patriarchy.
from?
Not that it was done on purpose, but matrescence existed before the term was coined. It was coined in the 70s, so it's been around for
Mhm.
15 years, or excuse me, 50 years. But before that, it didn't need a name. It still happened.
Right.
The difference was we didn't live in nuclear households. We weren't living in isolated boxes. I call us moms in a
Yeah.
box.
Yeah.
We would have learned the skill of mothering with my aunties. I would have been around
Mhm.
crying babies. So my baby wasn't the first baby I heard crying for
Right.
more than
Right.
5 minutes. We would have seen women walk that threshold from maiden to mother. We would have
Mhm.
had more than our own mother as an example of a mother.
Yeah.
And that is what's missing, the true community. This I don't give a hoot about the village. No one's coming to wipe your butt, your kid's
Mhm.
butt. No one's coming to help you with a tantrum. What we
Mhm.
need is a village of supporting the mother. And we
Yes.
need to take it on ourselves to say, why can't I trust women? Why can't I show my messy house? Why can't I
Mhm.
admit that I lost my shit? Because we're all losing our
Mhm.
shit.
Yeah.
And that builds these places and spaces where we're allowed to be who we are and allowed to
Mhm.
be in the middle of this
Mhm.
transition together. So I don't believe it was like this. I don't believe it was this hard when we lived in true community. Not
Yeah.
to say that everything's perfect and that everyone was nice and got along in community and
Right.
all the moms were great, but there were some definite advantages that were unspoken and
Yeah.
understood when we
Yeah.
were around people.
Right.
This is
Absolutely. Yeah.
pre-pandemic, just living. I remember 2019, I was like, I'm a freaking mom in a box. I went to all the story times. I went to hospitals that I didn't birth at so I could go to the new moms group. I was like, I'm going to be an active stay-at-home mom. And I was still alone with my baby for 10 hours a day in
Yeah.
isolation. And I'm
Oh,
like, can't I just
it's
hang?
horrible. Yeah.
Just
It
hang?
it's horrible. And you know what? So my neighbor just had a baby and her husband gets paternity leave. So they decided that she's a realtor. So she has a pretty flexible schedule and doesn't, can not have to be out of the house for like 10 hours out of the day. But her husband gets paternity leave. And so he decided to take his paternity leave so she could start going back to work. And she usually comes to the bus stop in the morning, but he showed up today. And we're like, oh, how you doing? Whatever. And he's like, I just needed to come out and speak to adults
Yeah.
because
Yes.
I spend 10 hours a day by myself with just the baby. And we're like,
Yeah.
all the moms at the bus stop are like, uh-huh, uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Like we totally get it.
Yeah.
So this has been traditionally a female, like
Mhm.
females have traditionally dealt with this, but it's not, it's really a primary caregiver, I mean, issue. But there's also that, like you're saying, that there's these parts that are whoever the primary caregiver is going to experience, but there's also this societal expectations and all
Mhm.
that it breaks us open. That was my
Right.
experience. Like motherhood broke me open to
Yes.
things that I didn't even know existed inside of me
Mhm.
until I became a mother. And it is my experience, and I'd love to hear your thought on this from working with mothers, but I don't like in the definition of matrescence, the way we're talking about it, I feel like it's never ends. Like it's an ever
Yeah.
evolving process. It's like every new stage and phase my children enter, I feel this new breaking open, this
Mhm.
new questioning, looking at things different, like changing my own identity as their mother. Like it's just ever evolving. I don't know when it's going to stop, but my daughter's almost 16 and hasn't stopped yet.
You want the good news or the bad news?
Let's start with good.
The good news, look at all these opportunities for transformation.
Yes, yes, yes.
No, it's not bad news, but it is technically like the term postpartum. Like people say I have postpartum. That's not a thing. You are postpartum and from when you give birth until you die, you are technically postpartum. Matrescence is cyclical. Some women don't notice matrescence. Well, some women notice it immediately. They're like,
Mhm.
when they find out they're pregnant, they're like, "Oh my God, the world is burning. I'm gonna be more active politically. And oh my God, I'm finally gonna take care of my body." And like everything shifts.
Right.
Other women are like, I've been looking forward to this. I'm already planning. Everything's on board. And they don't feel it until they are done with maternity leave. Some
Mhm.
women don't feel it until their kids hit school age. And
Mhm.
then no matter when you do, every time, go back to the analogy of the mom hat. Every time your mom hat adjusts, your identity is being asked to be adjusted as well.
Mhm.
Think of like just your oldest going into kinder or entering the school system, like logistically, totally different. You're gonna
Mhm.
have different relationships with teachers that you've never had before. You're gonna be like your world is shifting. It's not just your child starting kindergarten. Your
Mhm.
emotional skills at a parenting level are being asked to change, which is going to affect your inner work.
Yeah.
It is very cyclical. If you get a divorce, hello mom hat adjusting, hello
Yeah.
identity. It's out. That's not even like the divorce and loss of your marriage. It's another
Right.
loss of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so to me, I think these are truly are opportunities. They come at really inopportune times.
Right.
Like I'm sleep deprived and hormonal, and now I'm going to do the freaking inner work.
Right.
I
Yeah.
thought I already did it, but like how beautiful because if you are the primary caregiver, you are the actual leader of the next generation. You are
Yes.
setting and wiring their nervous system. This is the time to
Yes.
do it. I know you're tired. This is the time to do it. And
Yes.
I want to touch on something you talked about men and primary caregivers. You don't have to biologically have your child to go through matrescence,
Mhm.
but matrescence is a female experience.
Mhm.
There is people have tried to coin the term patrescence, but until they have been conditioned to have dad guilt and do it all,
Right.
they are not running through the same systemic pressures that women go
Mhm.
through. So
Mhm.
let's say you have same sex, you have a woman who's the non-birthing partner, she will go through matrescence.
Mhm.
A dad won't. They can still have a spiritual awakening through conscious parenting and using their parenting triggers as maps to their inner world and all of that. But at its core, it's not a repeatable process and it is not a core identity shift the way that it
Mhm.
is for women who have conditioned to be women in the patriarchy. It is
Yeah.
so much about patriarchal expectations.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not trying to discount like fatherhood is also relentless, but
Yeah.
it ain't the same. It just
It's
is
not the
not
same.
the same.
And my husband and I went through a really difficult time after the birth of our daughter also because I was really struggling. And then I
Mhm.
was looking at him and I'm like, why are you like, you're not experiencing anything that I'm experiencing? And I'm not talking about sleep deprivation and breastfeeding and all that stuff. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, like, it was like his world did not shift at all.
Yeah.
And my world turned on its axis.
Mhm.
And it's just been a fascinating throughout our whole marriage and our whole parenthood journey, the difference between my experience of parenthood and his experience of parenthood. It
Yeah.
is very different. And we also have a sick child. And so a lot of that, there's a lot of different emotions and triggers and inner work that comes when you have
Yeah.
not your average child, which I'm sure you know, as you mentioned. And our experience of that has been completely different.
Yeah.
So I don't know if part of that is because men are also, culture teaches them to be a certain way. And so
Yeah.
maybe that impacts their experience of fatherhood.
Yeah.
But yes, the pressures on women are unrealistic.
Yeah. Everyone wants to fuck the patriarchy, and it definitely fucked women. It also fucks men.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
allowed to feel their feelings. They've been conditioned, and
Yeah.
then we're like, "Can you help me?" And they're like, "I don't know how." They never had the tools. I
Yeah.
also want to defend men. Men were not even allowed in delivery rooms until the 1950s.
Yeah.
Okay? Like they haven't had the opportunity to fail, so they have more of a clean slate. We are digging ourselves up.
Yeah.
And one other little fun fact I like to share here is like men get something called a fatherhood bonus. When men are working, they're seen as, oh, look at him, he's providing, he's got kids. They actually make 3% more than kid free men. Women, as we know, already make less than men. Women with children make even less. Same work,
Yeah.
same job, they just make less. And then obviously, women of color with children make the least.
Mhm.
Like, it's just the way society views fathers. They, pedestal mothers.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service, but like go home and take care of the kids until they're productive. Like,
Yeah.
go away.
Yeah.
It's it doesn't make sense really either way. It's just
Mhm.
unconscious bias running everything. But yeah, that's just a financial example of
Yeah.
nothing's actually different, but you're gonna make more and I'm actually gonna make less because you're viewed differently than I
Yes.
am.
Yeah, you're valued differently, and
Yeah.
the expectations for you are different. No,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And meanwhile, moms are also like working and then cleaning the house and taking the kids to the doctor's appointments and helping with
Yeah.
the homework, and I could go on, but
Yeah. I'm like,
it's
is post I have a bone with postpartum depression. Do you have postpartum depression or did society just completely isolate you with no skills and no support? And like
no
postpartum,
sleep.
no sleep, postpartum depression went up with the pandemic. The women weren't more depressed. They just got more. We systematically isolated them. It's not a
Right?
personal problem. It's
Yes,
the function of the society.
yes.
It's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. You're having a very appropriate response to being isolated with a colicky baby. Like there's
Yes.
nothing wrong with you.
Yes. And the more, that community piece is so important. And as I got older and more comfortable, I finally got to a point where I was like, this, I'm just speaking my truth. And like, you
Yes.
don't like it, you don't like it. I don't know what to say. But do you know how many people were like, oh my God, me too? Oh
Yeah.
my God, me too. I mean, almost everyone that I shared what I was thinking, how I was feeling, and now it's on the regular. Now, like people cannot shut me up. I just say what I'm going to say. But people they want someone to break the seal. They want
Mhm.
someone to put words to their feelings and let them know they're not alone and let them know it's okay to feel what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And then that creates community, right? And
Yeah.
if you have someone who doesn't like what you have to say or how you're feeling, then they gently and lovingly don't need to be part of your community. There's
Yeah.
no animosity. I'm just saying then you guys are not in alignment. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of women out there who'd be willing to talk about these topics and be honest about
Yeah.
how hard this is.
That's how I grew my social media following. Is
Mhm.
I don't think it does. It's just my truth. I'm like I used to call
Yeah.
myself on my bio. It just said truth teller. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a victim of this. I'm not blaming anybody, but like this is what it is. And women are like, you're saying things I didn't have the words for. You're saying
Mhm.
things I didn't think I could say. I mean,
Mhm.
I get every day. There's a message. You are saving lives. I didn't know. I
Mhm.
didn't know you are saving lives. Thank you for saying this. I've never seen anybody say the words I say. And it's like, I'm just speaking my truth, which is the collective's truth.
Right.
It's the
Right.
collectives. It's not like, don't
Yes.
pedestalize me. You're
Yeah.
feeling it too.
Yes, but you had the bravery to say it, and it does
Yes.
take some courage to put yourself out in there and say it because some people
Yeah.
are not going to like it. But that's okay.
Yeah.
They can not like
That's
it.
okay.
That they're welcome to have their
I
opinion.
hear you, internet trolls.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're
No, a lot of
welcome
people
to
hate
it.
me.
Yes, but I'm welcome to my opinion as well. There's room for all. I happen to work with middle moms, and middle moms are like those moms whose kids are getting a little bit older, requiring a little less of them, like from a everyday hands-on. I need to help feed you and get you to the bathroom, and
Mhm.
obviously the babies and the toddlers and even the young grade schoolers. So it's those moms who are like leading that like really physically intensive part of parenting and
Yeah.
entering that different phase where they have a little more time on their hands. And I find women in this phase saying, I don't even know what I want anymore. Like, dove so hard and fast into this whole like mothering
Yep.
slash working slash whatever it is they're doing in their lives. And I was so busy and so like I was pregnant, I was breastfeeding, it was all these things. And then okay, I can see like a little light starting to come in. And I'm like, who am I? What
Mhm.
do I want? What is important to me? What lights
Yeah.
me up inside? Like, so that I would think would be part of this matrescence, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely. That is in when women say they're drowning in motherhood, because I mean, that's like a kind of a common thing you hear. The analogy is the hat. They forgot they were the woman wearing the hat. They thought they were like, I'm the hat. I identify with my hat. And then
Yes.
your women, they're taking the hat off and they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, I
Yeah,
was
put
here
it
the
in the
whole
comment. Maybe I need another baby.
yeah. 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 So I've also heard it called in the first 7 years, you're a full-time mom. Not that this has nothing to do with working, but you're like full on hands on. And then you're a
Yeah.
part-time mom in the tweens. And then when they hopefully leave the nest eventually, you're an on-call mom.
Right.
So
Right.
I hear you're like, okay, I'm part-time mom. Now I'm part-time me. Who's me?
Yes.
And
Who's
what a
me?
beautiful opportunity.
Yes, it's a beautiful opportunity to do that inner work and just
Yeah.
because you're not the you were before you
No.
had a baby. You're
Mhm.
not even the you were when you were parenting in that really intensive
Yeah.
part of parenting. You're a whole new you. But
Yeah.
who is this new you and how do you discover who she is? And I think it happens again, like you said, as your parents, or as your children leave the nest and you
Yeah.
become that on-call mom, like now that's a whole other phase of this
Yeah.
matrescence that
Yeah.
now your world has really opened up,
Uh-huh.
and there's, I'm sure, a lot of questions that come along with that, a lot of internal
Yeah.
questioning that goes along with
I
that.
It's interesting that when you think of this analogy, the hat with those 3 different phases, like full-time, you're calling middle moms, and then on-call moms. In the beginning, when everyone's drowning and it's so physically demanding and you're carting around to activities and there's tantrums, all the things, I hear almost that they love the drowning. Like, follow me here. Not that
Okay.
they actually love it, but it gives them the purpose. They don't have to figure out who they are. And I like to say there's so many different hats. You like the Louis Vuitton hat, I like the Gucci hat, you like this hat. My hat's supposed to look like this. We are so obsessed. Like, it gives us a purpose, and it kind of feels like it gives us a direction because there seems to be a rule book. There is no one rule
Yes.
book, which is the joke of it all. But we
Yes.
think if I focus on my hat, I'm going to figure it all out. So there's women who are complaining, "Oh my god, I'm the chef, I'm the chauffeur, da, 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 da." But I'm like, "Girl, you sound like you love that."
Right.
I mean, I just being honest, those are
Yeah.
the women who follow me, but they don't actually wanna do the work. I know them
Right.
really, really well. Um, but it makes it harder and more confronting if you make it to stage 2 where you're helping women, where
Yeah.
it's like, "Shit, I just now it's 9 years of me avoiding who I am." There
Yeah.
is a grief process in that. It's not a shame. It's just accepting what was going on. Yeah, I kinda did use the shit show of all the expectations as an excuse, and you know what? I'm not
Mhm.
gonna do that anymore. And then there's grief of who could I have been if I did the work earlier. We just gotta
Yeah.
call it. Like,
Yeah.
so much of motherhood is grief. Like, you gotta
Yes.
start with
Yeah.
grieving your maiden. You gotta
Yeah.
start with grieving the child that was perfect in your belly. They're
Yeah.
still perfect, but they came out and they're human now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, grieve the fake child, grieve the fake you had in your head when you
Yes.
lose your shit, and so much grieving. And then that
So much
allows
grieving.
you to go forward.
Yes. And that's something else that people don't talk about. I mean, I, even myself, didn't put that word grief to it
Mm,
until probably within the last year, because in my mind, when I thought grief, I thought someone who lost someone that was really important to them in their life. But if
yeah,
you think about even that basic definition that I'm saying off the top of my head, when you,
that's it.
matrescence is a series of losing yourself over
Yeah,
and over and over and over again.
yeah,
And that's not a bad thing. Like you're saying,
no,
it's an opportunity to
yeah,
open up and grow into this next version of yourself. But there is also some grief with
yeah,
losing that other piece of you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I like to say in the cliche, transformation analogy from the caterpillar to the butterfly, like, butterflies are so beautiful, right?
Mhm.
But, like, caterpillars had a really easy effing life. They didn't worry about the wind. They, life was effing simple. You could cut them in half and they still live. Like, everything's easy. Like, not to say I wanna go back and be a caterpillar, but, like, shit, I miss that. Let's acknowledge that. Like, it's
Yes.
just different. It's
Yeah.
just different.
It is. And I wonder how much of this also has to do with, and I'm thinking of this only because I am 45 and I feel like my body is really changing. Like I feel like
Mm.
I'm coming towards where I'm going to start, yeah,
Perimenopause.
like perimenopause and all that. And I've been putting my head in the sand and denying that for a while, but I feel like I cannot deny it anymore. Like it's happening. And there have been so many changes in my body, and
Mhm.
I just said to my girlfriend literally this morning, I said, I feel like someone sucked my soul out of my body and then plopped it back down in this new body that's not
Yeah.
even my body that I walked around in my whole life. And now I have to get to know this new body because this
Mm.
is now my new body.
Yeah.
But there's a grief for the old body. There's an attachment to the old body. There's a wishing that
Mhm.
I hadn't been put into this new body, even though I know it's normal and natural and part of life. But we go through so much in our bodies as women,
Yeah.
from the onset of menstruation to, pregnancy and recovering from pregnancy, and then eventually perimenopause and menopause. And I feel like that really contributes to a lot of what we
Yes.
experience in our emotional body.
Mhm. Yeah, oh, I'm gonna geek out with you right now because I wanna quickly have you heard of the 5 blood rights?
No.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna
Oh,
love
do
this.
tell,
You
girl.
you love this.
I know I will.
Love you. Um, so as this is a distinctly biological feminine thing because we have blood rights that we go through and stack on top of each other. This is like the emotional story of our lives is our birthright, which is very bloody. Then we
Mhm,
have our first menses. Then
mhm,
we have some people do intercourse as well, but then every time you become a mother and then when you die.
mhm. Oh, yeah.
There's menopause and then when you die. So each one of these holds a story in your body. Like think when I'm working with women and we're looking at the entrance to motherhood, let's look at your entrance to womanhood.
Mhm.
How was your period talked about? How were you welcomed into a community of women? Obviously you weren't.
Yes.
Usually there's
Yeah.
a lots of shame and that
Yes.
stacks and then
Mm.
all of that cellular memory comes back again in menopause when all
Yeah.
of those systems are shutting down and we were entering a new phase. They stack and these are yes, it's natural and normal, but it we're also not talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was gonna say I follow tons of midlife women who, God, they make menopause look so good, and they make gray hair look so good, and they make lifting heavy weights look so good. I don't live in a village, but if we lived in a village, I would be around people further down the line. And in the motherhood space, I think we're so obsessed with, I want to be with other moms who have similar age kids because they know what I'm going through, which that is great. But we
Mhm.
also want like someone ahead of us down the line. So you
Yeah.
actually have someone to go to, like, yes, of course your body's changing, but let's talk about how you don't want it to change for a couple months first. Like, let's get into it.
Right.
Let's be in the process. So it's
Yes.
it's really important to have people ahead of you. Like,
Yes.
not that's kind of like a maiden view of being selfish in a good way. Like, it's just about me. Let me figure out what I need right now. My kids, my. But it benefits everyone. Like if
It
you could
yes.
mentor the pre-mothers and the newbies, not in a just you wait, but like sit with
Mhm.
them and be like, this kind of sucks, doesn't it? Like open,
Yeah.
break the seal, like how you said,
Yeah.
break the seal for them. And I want someone to break the menopause seal for you,
Right, right,
you know?
absolutely, and I think we're starting to talk about that more, and I'm so grateful because there are so many just like when we enter motherhood, just like any of these stages, there are so many changes
Yeah.
that are behind the scenes that you don't see and people don't talk about unless you have someone super close to you who
Yeah.
went through it and was very open about talking about it, but I think that's the minority of people. Most people
Yeah.
don't have that. And so it is so helpful to have a community of people or even just one person who's willing to be vulnerable and share their experience and
Yeah.
allow you to feel like you're okay. Like
Yeah.
you're doing okay. That you might feel like you're drowning, but that's okay because that's part of the
Yeah.
process and
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
gonna resurface. You're gonna do the work and you're gonna
Yeah.
resurface. So how do you help women do this? Like how do they come to you? What are they
Mhm.
saying to you? And then how do you help
Mm.
them dive into all of this?
Yeah, well, everyone finds me on social media.
Okay.
I'm at social media on TikTok and Instagram. It's Kendra Williams. I am just flying off the handle with my truth. So you will love if you like this podcast, you'll like my social media presence. And then I work with women one on one, and then I also do groups. I'm moving more towards groups because as great as it is for me to be honest and for me to share the tools, I find women think it's just me who talks about it. I was like, "No,
Mhm.
girlfriend, it's all of my clients. I just wanna
Yes.
put you all in a room together."
Yes.
And this is a perfect segue from what you were talking about because in the patriarchy, we have been conditioned unconsciously to compete for our looks, for our partners, for the
Yes.
jobs. Like, it's not like I look at you and I say, I don't trust you. We're in the same space. Like, I'm like, I don't look at you, but there's got to be somewhere in me that's like, oh, there isn't like a lot of mom coaches and a lot of people doing this. We have to get really clear that motherhood is an opportunity to come back to true sisterhood that we needed
Mhm.
way before motherhood.
Right.
But like, sisterhood is really a gift, like true soul sisterhood, where you can have disagreements, you
Mhm.
can truly root for each other. And then that's when the whispers of realities of our experience get to just flow between us.
Yeah.
So I'm moving towards group because group is it's magic. It's synergistic. It's more than I can't create a group when it's just me and one woman. So
Right.
the behind the scenes, the tools I'm doing is a lot of conscious parenting. I'm doing a lot of inner child work, doing a lot of nervous system regulation, a lot of somatic work, bringing women back into their body. I say matrescence cracks you open And I work with the brave women who are willing to go in. I will guide you into yourself and then
Mhm.
find you. We're not like, we're just shedding old layers
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
finding other women brave enough to shed their layers and they show up together and it's, oh my God, I just love it. I love it. This is the work of life.
It is, it is. But how what are they saying? Like when they come to you, when your
Mm.
clients come to you, what are they
Oh God.
saying to you? Like
I
what are
fucking
some
hate motherhood. My kids are fucking assholes. Why didn't anybody tell me this was so hard? Can you fix me? Is it really, can I really be guilt free? I
Yeah,
don't believe you.
yeah.
This is too fucking hard.
I
Literally.
this girlfriend that I was on the phone with, I was telling you about the menopause
Yeah.
conversation. The first I said, actually call her sister, so it's funny you say soul sister, like we are soul sisters. I'm like, "Hey, sister, how you doing?" And she's like, "So I'm done with motherhood.
Yeah.
I'm opting out.
Yeah.
I'm done."
Yeah.
And I'm like, right there with you. I am so
Yes.
there with
Yes. I'm telling you, my testimonials when I say like, what were you thinking or why did you sign up for the program? My favorite one is I hated motherhood.
you.
I was like, dude, that's it.
Yeah,
And I can give you, I don't like to do this, but I can give you 100 reasons why it's totally appropriate to hate motherhood, but I don't want to give you so many that you get stuck in victimhood.
right. Yeah,
But yeah, motherhood as it stands today is it's a lose-lose game. The
yeah.
kids lose, the moms lose, society loses because we are not supported.
Mhm.
So we got to play a different game. But
So, I guess there's,
yeah.
like, different layers, like so there's the layer that I see that is more of a societal problem where women are kinda being, like, required there's been too much required of them in motherhood,
Yeah.
right? Like, what as far as working outside the home and inside the home, or whether it be these ridiculous expectations of what their kids wear and the birthday parties and the I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
Pinterest and all the things, right? So there's that part. But then there's the internal part where I
Mhm.
feel like motherhood, it is uncomfortable. Maybe you do hate it because it's pushing you up against your edge, your boundaries.
Mhm.
It's growth is uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable. It requires courage. It requires us to be able to move into a space that we cannot see yet, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I know what I'm in right now, like that mom who's like staying busy just to stay busy because I don't necessarily love it, but I actually can't see what's beyond it. And so
Yeah.
that's very scary.
Mhm.
Um, and so that part I feel like is fantastic. It's uncomfortable, but it's
Yeah.
fantastic. You know, when your kid says something to you or does something and you get this internal rise in you and you're like, whoa, whoa.
Mhm. Mhm.
What was that? You know, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Or, you know, when you're entering a new phase and you're deciding, how am I going to parent? Like you said, you started out, you know, in that arena of helping parents to parent. But,
Right.
you know, we all have to make choices about how we were parented and how we maybe want to do things differently and why.
Mhm.
So, all of that, like it's many layers, I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So do you guys work through all these different layers, or do you focus more on that like internal stuff, like how you're getting pushed up against the edge of
Mhm.
growth?
Internal. I think
Okay.
that's why I'm pivoting out of the space. I think there's a lot of great accounts and great people who are actually fucking the patriarchy. They're going for longer maternity leave. They're speaking to VPs of HR and helping them understand that these women are actually still assets. Hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're doing that systematically. They're putting women in government, all the things.
Yeah.
There's that route, and then there's the route I've chosen, which is the grassroots style, like woman to woman, we're fucking the
Mhm.
patriarchy from within. The
Mhm.
issue is, yes, self-care is good and putting myself first is good. But inside, they have the patriarchal standard that a good mom puts herself last.
Mhm.
We've got to
Mhm.
get clear on that rub. And that's what I do. That's why
Yeah.
I can geek out on the patriarchy, the external stuff. Like it is fascinating that men just do fucking nothing. They don't birth the child and they make more money. Like great, that's a fun little tidbit. But like where are you saying, "Oh, he's a," when men get like, "Oh, he's such a good dad because he took the kids to Costco," and meanwhile the woman does that all the time. Like but you actually still think when you see a good dad that he's a good dad because he's doing that. Where are you upholding the patriarchy in your life?
Yeah.
That's what I get into in my containers. I'm not blaming the women, but it's like if you want to be the change,
Yes.
Be the
Yes.
change. You don't like it's a political year, so it's about to get wild. You want to see people disagree. You want to see people know how to have conflict and handle it. Learn conflict in your house. Somebody's
Mhm.
triggering you out there. Find an opportunity with your 7-year-old to be actually democratic about what's going on.
Yeah.
That's the change. You have issues with bodily autonomy. I question, why did you pierce your daughter's ears at 1? Did you ask her?
Yeah.
Tell me. Let's get really clear on our internal inconsistencies and
Mhm.
then pick our own values. Maybe you do align with the patriarchy. Cool. Great.
Mhm.
I don't care if you stay home, but are you staying home because that's what you think good moms do?
Right.
Are you working because you want to do it all, but you actually like, let's get really, really clear on where the patriarchy has influenced you. That's
Yeah.
the work. That's the work I'm doing. But I do
Yeah.
like to geek out sometimes on the
Right.
external.
And you're so right about women always putting themselves last. It is because what we talk about on the show and part of my mission, a big part of my mission is helping women to heal themselves
Mhm.
so that they can raise a different generation, right?
Yeah.
Because we are the gatekeepers for the next generation. And that's not parenting, right? That's not the act of parenting, it's the act of healing myself. So I show up differently in the role of mother, which is just a role that I play amongst
Yes.
many roles, and it's not
Yes.
who I am.
Yeah.
But I show up differently in that role for my children who then learn different things because I'm
Mhm.
showing up differently in that role. And so it all begins with self. Everything begins with self.
Yes.
But yes, women have and I had another guest on my show, and she brought this up, and I thought, really, it just really like resonated with me. I felt that she was really spot on when she said that women often do not take time for that internal work, self care. They
Mm.
don't set boundaries. They don't do all of these things because they feel that they have to earn their worth. That
Yes.
if they're running around just stressed to the max and not doing anything, total self-sacrifice, not doing anything for themselves, they have earned their worth.
Yeah.
And that is an internal narrative that we need to change before women will be able to do this work.
Yeah. I think that's a gift of motherhood that unfortunately we should have learned when we were 7
Right.
is I always say self-care, you only take care of things you care about. I really honestly, women, we don't care about ourselves. We've been taught everyone else comes first. Even before motherhood, when we thought we were taking care of ourselves, self-care was a luxury. I'm getting my nails done, getting my hair done,
Mhm.
I'm going to this. Self-care is a necessity, and it always was.
Yeah.
And now we're questioning, like, the the question is, do I care about myself? Because if you try and do something, if you try and take care of yourself, now that you only get 2 hours away because your babies are young, you try and do something for yourself, it feels like nails on a chalkboard if you don't actually love yourself. It's
Mhm.
so confronting. So this whole like
Yes.
self-care, the conversation, it's a self-worth conversation. And it
It
started
is.
way before motherhood because we were taught that our worth and our validation came from being good girls.
Yeah.
And
And
what
of
do good
service
girls
to
do?
others. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's again the curse blessing of yay, let's do this in our work when I'm so tired and I have no
Yeah.
time. But
Yes.
yeah, self-care comes from luxury to necessity and sits
Mhm.
on the confronting idea of do I think I'm enough? Do I
Yeah.
think I'm worthy?
And I would be I would even challenge the terminology self-care
Yeah.
because of the way it's been used in our society, that it has a certain
Yes.
like connotation when you think self-care. Like, I'm not sure what the new phrase should be. We'll work on that together maybe, but
No,
I feel
it's
like you have a relationship, like you said, when we care about something, we put time and effort into it.
mhm,
We care about our children, we put time and effort into it, care about our partners, time and effort, care about our jobs, time and effort, care about our home, time and effort. But there's this relationship that you have from birth until death, and in my opinion, beyond,
mhm.
that we are not putting time and effort into. And if
Yeah.
we didn't put the time and effort into all those other things that I mentioned, they would fall apart.
Yeah.
What makes us think that we can neglect our relationship with ourselves and that we're not going to
Yeah.
fall apart as a result? Yeah.
Yeah, that's confronting. I think going back to the hat analogy, we all wear the mom hat and we all have it's a great hat and it's an influential hat. It's like one of the best hats we could wear, right? But I think even before that, if when people say, "Tell me about you," you're like, "Oh, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter." That tells me nothing about you. Like you didn't actually know who you were. You were not in a relationship to self before because we want the VP of sales hat and we want the wife hat and we want the independent ass woman hat, whatever
Yeah.
hat it is. We were never questioned on the being. The
Yeah.
world is about the doing. And that's why I think, just to tie this back to that framework I originally shared, the being, doing, and relating, the world has forgot about the being. And that's
Yeah.
the beauty, I think, of what this whole generation of parents is really doing, is reminding our kids that you're fucking worthy
Yeah.
before you do anything. I
Yeah.
love you. Well, I'm going to teach you skills. I'm going to contain. I'm going to give you boundaries and all the things, but like, you're worthy. I love you. And you made a
Yeah.
mistake. We didn't get that message. We got, you made a
Yeah.
mistake and now I love you.
Right.
And it's going to, like, what I can't wait to see what these kids, they're going to have their own shit and they'll be in therapy and coaching for their own stuff, but it'll be a different flavor. Um, like, how beautiful to know that there's a soul, that to know that you're your own person before the labels. And the
Yes.
labels do help us sort and they help us get along. And I'm not demonizing labels. I'm demonizing identifying with the labels.
Yes, yes. I love that. I love that. And honestly, I think a lot of times people don't often recognize that they're not the label. You know,
Yes.
they if you were like, "Well, no, who are you?" And they'd be like, "Well, that is who I am. Like
Yeah.
that's who I am." You know?
Yeah. That's my perfect client, by the way, because they're like, I'm a mom. And then they're like, well, I'm like, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. I'm a mom. Like,
Right.
that's it right there. That's it right there.
Right there. That's where we need to work.
That's where we start.
Yes. What you mentioned somatic practices, which I love. So what types of things do you do when you work with your clients?
Well, it's all over Zoom. You mean what actual exercises am I
Yeah,
doing?
like do you guys do exercises together?
Yeah, I'm walking them through, holding the container for, sometimes it's processing. I always say we have to process like the grieving parts. We got to move through some stuff, and then I'm calling you forward. I am
Mhm.
not. There are women and places and spaces that hold space. I'm a transformational life coach. I'm trying to get you to bounce forward.
Okay.
So I'm taking the bounce back culture and flipping that. Like, when you are ready, when you've surrendered to the portal, I can help you and guide you forward. So somatic starts, and then I will call you forward on patterns that may be invisible to you and give you
Mhm.
different frameworks to kind of get you out of that hole.
Okay. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
In yoga, we call those samskaras. They're like patterns that repeat over. And actually, they can be negative or positive, but we often
Yeah.
don't recognize them.
Yeah.
And then once our attention is brought to them, then you can't not see them.
Yes.
And it's like shining a flashlight on it. And then you're like,
Yes.
holy shit, that was there the whole time. I
Yes.
did not see it. And it really is, it's a launch pad. It really is a launch pad for
Yeah.
really transformational change if you can dedicate yourself to the work because the
Mhm.
pattern's not going to disappear overnight. It's
No,
a,
it's not.
it's an ingrained, part of your behaviors that needs awareness and
Yeah.
recognition and then tools to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to add in like the lens of motherhood through life coaching. In our world, we want to get better and improve all the time and be consistent. And we want that like graph going up and to the right. Right.
Mhm, mhm,
In motherhood, since most of us have given birth, we understand expansion and contraction, dilation going back, dilation going back.
mhm.
That is supposed to happen. We're not fucking it up when we get triggered by
Right,
the same freaking trigger.
right.
It's different. We are meant to go back and revert and regress and then expand again.
Yeah,
And how beautiful to have that lens after giving birth, like, oh my God, I get it. So I
yeah,
just love the lens with which matrescence and motherhood gives to all of life, because all of life is
yeah,
cyclical. All of
yeah.
life is up and down, but we were just so conditioned that it's not cyclical, same productivity every single day, improve, improve, improve.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
and it's not like that. And if we want to feel successful in motherhood, like, what an odd concept. Like, how can you be successful
Yeah,
in this thing?
yeah,
We can't look at productivity. We can't
yeah.
look at my metrics. I can't tell you I changed 12 diapers and I nursed for 67 minutes in the first half of the day. Like, it's not that.
Yeah,
Productivity in the feminine lens is, how long was I actually present? Not
yeah,
happy, but like, how long was I actually present in the moment? That is the motherhood lens, the
mhm.
feminine lens of like, how can I be a successful human being right now?
Yeah.
and it can't be measured, and we gotta be okay with, I can't show you my report card on how effing good I am when
Right.
my first 30 years were an amazing report card and everyone would love it. Look at my
Yeah.
degree, look at my job, look at my money. And now I'm like, my validation comes from within. I don't need
Yes.
you. I want you.
Yes.
I want you in my life, but I don't need
Right.
you.
Yes. Yes. It's so true. It's so true. That internal work can only be measured by you. And that's the only person that it matters to measure it. And we're like, I think we're kind of hardwired to do this internal work because we are naturally compassionate, empathetic,
Yes.
loving. We have these certain traits as women, these feminine qualities that, not that men don't have them, but women,
Right.
we're intuitive, we tend to have them in greater abundance.
Yeah.
And it really, it allows us to do that work because there's a lot of having to forgive yourself, having to have compassion for yourself, having to love yourself, having to do all these things that we are so naturally good at doing with
Yeah.
others. And then we seem to, I don't know what happens when we try to turn that around and do it for
Yeah.
ourselves. It is definitely more
Yeah.
challenging often to do it for ourselves than it is to other people, to do it for other people that we love. But we
Yeah.
have those beautiful gifts. And if we
Yeah.
can learn to, turn that around, like we're always focusing those outward towards other
Yeah.
people. And if we can learn to turn it around towards ourselves and shine that beauty on
Yeah.
ourselves, we can really do some amazing, amazing work. And then from that, in my opinion, everything else flows, right? Like,
Mhm.
you want to make a change in the world, like if that's what you're passionate about, like turn the flashlight on yourself, do the inner work,
Yes.
have that self-compassion, do the, come up against your edges. It's uncomfortable. You grow, you contract and expand. But that's the place from which you can do all other things, outward things in your life that are
Yes.
meaningful to you and meaningful to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I love this conversation, by the way. I'm so glad we're here together today.
me too.
I think these qualities, these feminine qualities, we always had them. It's just that we didn't value them because, again, it wasn't celebrated. And kind of going back to fatherhood and motherhood, um, no one was celebrated for resting before. We had to earn it. Like, I can tell you one of my favorite things is, like, I know how to fucking rest. I didn't rest until 3 years into motherhood. The first time in my life I rested without guilt.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm telling it's life-changing
It
to
is.
be able to accomplish, to actually just lay there and do nothing without make shaming or guilting myself. I'm like, I am alive. I am free.
Yes.
But, like, it was so demonized. I had so
Yes.
much internal conditioning. It wasn't just, I'm not a good mom. It was like, no, I need to be productive. I need to show for myself. This is what makes me me. Like, so many stories that I could blame on the patriarchy, but I was upholding them. I was my own
Yes.
perpetrator. I was withholding my rest. And, like, that we need to look at these things as strengths. Like, yes, there's masculine strengths. Productivity is a
Yes.
strength, and
Yes.
boundaries are strengths. All these things are great, but we need to also look at how different the feminine. And this is, men have feminine energy and
Mhm.
feminine strengths too, but we need to just value them differently.
Yes.
We can't measure,
Yes.
they're apples and oranges, and we have been told that it must all be apples. So
Yes.
part of
Yes.
the work is really seeing the beauty in what's already inside of us. It's not like, I always say, one, I don't fix anyone. I call myself like the torchbearer. I will hold the light as you go down, but I can't do
Mhm.
any of the work for you. I can
Yeah.
show you it's not scary. I've been down here before, but this is your cave.
Yeah.
Um, and let's just get present with what is. It's so much of
Yes.
just accepting. Once you get
Yeah.
below the
Yeah.
stories, and the stories,
Yeah.
I always say I get roped up in stories. Some people have really fun triggers or interesting triggers, but it's never the trigger.
Yeah.
I could,
Yes.
yeah, your husband's being a fucking asshole, blah, but why are you doing that? Let's focus back on you.
Right, right. Yes, it's easier to focus out.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yes,
then whatever, we're gonna hold people accountable. If your husband's actually
yes.
being an asshole, we're not gonna tolerate that later. But, like,
Right.
um, it's always go in, go within, go
Go
within, go
within, go
within. It's
within.
all in you.
Yeah.
It's in all of us.
I just wanna go back to a second just to emphasize it. I loved what you said about, like, we were not conditioned to value the feminine qualities,
Yeah.
right? Everybody has masculine and feminine, men, women, we all have it kind of naturally in different, variations, right?
Yep.
Because some women have a little more masculine tendency, and some women have that little more feminine, and so on and so forth. It's a range.
Yes.
But you're right, society has really put those masculine qualities of productivity and boundaries and those harsher qualities up on a pedestal, and
Mhm.
these it's like science, right? Like the hard sciences. I was a science major, I was a chemistry major. um
Yes.
okay, hard, right, but arts are kind of like down here, right? Science
Yeah.
is up here and arts are down here,
Yeah.
but they actually are equal in value,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
they provide equal value, and they are needed, and they are needed for everyone, every sex, every person. They are needed, and it's yin and yang, it's balance,
Yes.
right? They are needed in balance. But the hard stuff is a lot easier if you do the soft stuff, right? If you do
Yes.
the feminine,
Yes.
the hard stuff becomes, I don't want to say hard stuff, but the masculine qualities
Mhm.
become easier
Yes.
because you have rested, because you
Yeah.
have had self compassion, because you have, looked within and healed yourself and loved yourself and, forgiven yourself and all these things. Then you can step in to the doing, right? You have
Yes.
to do the being
Being.
first,
I love
and
you.
then you can do the doing, right?
Yes. I always tell women, like, I'm not actually going to make your life easier. I'm not going to come and physically, clean your dishes, but I'm going to make you feel ease because all
Yes,
of the extra bullshit of oops, all the shame spirals, all of the catastrophizing, it's you can unsubscribe. It's not as easy as just I'm going to unsubscribe, but you're going to go in and do the work. But it does get to be easier. It truly
yes,
does.
it
But you have to
does.
go in and say, I think a lot of husbands when I have clients who are signing on, they're like, "My husband doesn't understand this." And it's like, "Well, no, duh." Because like, how do you even describe inner work to someone that is so obsessed with the doing?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's what am I gonna get out of it? It's not losing weight. It's not pounds. We're not starting a business. Like, what am I
There's no
paying
goal
for?
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what am I paying for? And I'm like, you're paying for you to become you, like literally you, for you to enjoy your life. It's this holistic life just gets juicier when you invite the feminine,
Yes.
and stop demonizing it and embrace it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yes,
It
the
really
being,
does.
the being, the doing, the being, the
The
doing, the
doing.
dance.
Yes. The dance of being and doing. And you're right. The doing becomes there's so much more flow in the doing
Hmm.
when you start with the being. And also when you start with the being, you start looking at all the doing that you're doing. And a lot of it you're like, cross it off the list, cross it, doesn't need,
Yeah.
don't need to do it. I don't need that. I don't
Yeah.
need that. So you actually the doing does become less because you
Yes.
recognize what you were just doing because you were in a pattern or because you thought you had
Yes.
to, or because it added, you thought you weren't worthy if you didn't, or whatever the case may
Mhm.
be. When you're comfortable with yourself as you are, you don't need anything.
Yeah.
And so you can then be like, I'm removing a lot of doing out of my life
Yeah.
because it's really unnecessary doing. We're all spiraling and doing a lot of doing that doesn't need to be done.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the best part is this is when people are like, I'm a working mom of 2 young kids. I have no time to take care of myself. Yeah, got rid of the extra shit and they're doing their yoga and they're going on walks with their friends and they're having happy hours. And I'm like,
I
we are winning again.
yes.
it's
Oh,
it
it's
happens.
it does. It really does. It does. Well, thank you so much for being here. I could talk to you forever. But I really
Me too.
appreciate you, sharing all your wisdom. I will put all of your stuff in my show notes so that
Yes.
everybody's listening can reach out to you if they would like to work with you.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun chatting with you,
It
Katie.
was. It was. All right, Kendra. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
Hi, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed Kendra as much as I did. I thought that was a really great conversation and really tore down walls and expectations of different cultural beliefs that we may hold that really, I think a lot of times we don't even recognize that we hold them. We don't even know that we're operating, and that there are certain things that we're doing and saying and patterns in our lives that are there because of expectations that society has set for us. So I thought we really opened the door to really examining those things and deciding what we value and what we don't, and how we can put down what we don't value and embrace what we do. But when I thought back over the show, and I wanted to pull something from the show for a mindfulness exercise opportunity this week. And the thing that stood out to me the most was the conversation we had around feminine and masculine qualities. This is something that is talked a lot about in yoga, actually in yoga philosophy, and how we really need a balance of that, the feminine and the masculine qualities. And feminine qualities are thought to be things more like creativity, compassion, sensitivity, being cooperative, nurturing, those types of things. And we all recognize that um, in general, there's never anything that's 100%, but in general, women tend to exhibit those qualities more than men do. And men tend to exhibit masculine qualities more, which are the doing parts of life. They are the goal setting, getting things done, the action oriented, task oriented qualities. And what Kendra and I were saying was that they're both needed, right? They're both needed in every area of life, in business, in parenthood, in anything really that you do. You need that mixture of being and doing. But we tend to live in the doing and forget about the being and not value the being as much. And Kendra mentioned, when she a couple years ago learned how to just take a pause, take a rest. If you're on my email list, I'm sure you got my email about the sacred pause and how meaningful it is to take that pause. So I'm inviting you this week to just bring some awareness to your feminine qualities that you carry, and then to lean into them in a way that gives you rest and ease, right? And turn those feminine qualities on yourself. We talked about how, as women, we are often wonderful at using those feminine qualities to help others and nurture others in our lives, but we're not often good at turning them around towards ourself and nurturing ourself using those qualities. So I invite you this week to think about what they are, which ones are maybe most prominent for you in your life, and then maybe think about how often you are actually using them on yourself versus the people in your life that you care about, and then maybe taking some opportunities to turn them on yourself, to show yourself compassion, sensitivity, nurturing, love. And then once you do that, if you choose to take this opportunity, to then see how the rest of your day goes, right? So if you say, I feel tired, and the most compassionate thing I can do for myself when I feel tired is to take a little rest, and then you choose to take that rest and not have any guilt about it. And then how does the rest of your day go after you take that rest? That's just one example, right? Or maybe you make some sort of error, and you would really be beating yourself up about that. You'd be saying nasty things to yourself inside your head. You can't believe you did that. You're so stupid for doing that. What is the matter with you? Who knows the narrative? Whatever the narrative would be running in your head, if you can catch yourself and then decide to use those feminine qualities of, compassion and forgiveness and love on yourself, and then see how that turns your day around. So that's my invitation for this week. I, of course, as always, will flesh it out more in my newsletter. So if you're not signed up, just you can go to my Instagram or Facebook, or hopefully my website is up right now, momontheverge.org. I record these episodes in advance. So hopefully by the time you are hearing this episode, my website is up and running, and you can sign up for my newsletter there as well. All right, have a wonderful week, guys. I will see you next week. Until then, just keep doing little bits of work every single day, and you will see huge gains over time. You'll be living the life that you were meant to live, and it will feel so good. All right. Love you guys. Bye.
Hi, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode or any of our other episodes, I ask that you please like the show, follow, subscribe, or share. The way that podcasts work is the more people that do one of those things, the the more likely it is that when someone's looking for a podcast to listen to, our show will pop up for them. I started this podcast because I really see there's a great need in our world for people to feel more peace, joy, love, and acceptance in their lives. And I think we can do that when we have a greater sense of self-awareness. We could become conscious creators of our own lives. And I'm seeking to do that for as many people as possible. So if you could help me by liking, sharing, or subscribing to the show, I'd really appreciate it. And hopefully someone hears a conversation that changes their life. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Much love.